Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first Rising Star Leadership Conversations webinar. I'm delighted to see so many of you here today. We're at 230 already and rising, so thank you very much for sparing the time to come and listen to what we've prepared for you. As you know, or many of you know, Rising Star is our program that recognises the most talented young professionals across South Africa, and it gives them a platform to connect and rise. It's also fabulous to see so many grad stars here in the room today as well. Thank you and welcome. One of our features of the Rising Star Leadership Conversations series is the Give Back offer from these top leaders. It's both inspiring and amazing to see these busy senior business people kindly donating their time to give back to the next generation. And for that, I would like to thank our guest speaker, Accenture MD, Kgomotso Lebele. Kgomotso has joined the plethora of leaders heeding the call and has offered 1 hour of his time to give some mentorship advice to one of you here in the room today. So please comment throughout the session, comments, questions, everything welcome. Bring your A game, make sure you're the one to be noticed. We will go through all the questions, the whole sheet after the event, and we'll inform the winner early next week. So watch out on social media for our announcements. The social media slide is coming up now with all our details. And across Facebook, we will use Rising Star SA, hashtag Rising Star 2020. We also welcome comments from the webinar to be posted across all social media. Getting to what we will be discussing today, leadership at all times is challenging, especially now during the time of COVID. This is when true lessons are learned, true icons are born. No one has trodden this path before and there's no blueprint to follow. Today, we welcome Lisa Andrews, Senior Talent Manager from Old Mutual and a constant friend to our Rising Star and Grad Star initiatives, to begin the conversation with Kgomotso about leadership in the time of COVID and how this pandemic has forced the hand of many leaders, what lessons can be learned from it, and how we can learn from this going forwards. Once Lisa has conducted the interview, I will come back to manage all your questions from the floor, and I'll have that discussion with Kgomotso. So please, everyone, keep the social media going, keep the questions coming, stand up, be noticed, turn up. And on that note, I would like to welcome Lisa and Kgomotso to take the conversation forward.
Thank you very much for that, Laura. So welcome everybody. My name is Lisa Andrews. I'm the Head of Talent for Africa for Old Mutual Limited. And it gives me great pleasure today to spend some time with Kgomotso Lebele, an MD at Accenture. And we will be conducting an interesting leadership conversation for you all today. Thank you, Kgomotso. If you want to say a few words, I'm happy to start when you are.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm quite delighted to be having this conversation with you, and thank you for everyone who has joined us. Looking forward to the next hour or so.
Perfect. We're living in such unprecedented times at the moment for business and for all of us as global citizens. What do you believe are the key attributes of leaders during this difficult time?
Lisa, I would say decisiveness. I would say courage, and more important, I would say listening. And maybe to bring it to my personal life first before looking at it in the business context. I was born in Soweto, 1978. As we celebrate Youth Day and think about the Soweto uprising. It was 2 years after that, but my first introduction to true leaders during crisis time was looking at how my mother operated. Very early after I was born, I was shipped to go live with my grandmother. Something that I continuously challenged my mother. What it meant was leave a home with one sibling, go live with 9 other grandchildren with my grandmother. But over the years, as I had discussions with my mother, I realized how in those times he needed to decide. It was not an easy decision. Overnight, she became a breadwinner of a family of 9 just because I had to go live with my cousins. She had courage to do something that not many people wanted to do. And why she did that is she believed in few things. She valued education very much. And she knew that moving me to, at that time, the old homeland of Bophuthatswana, she believed that the education system there was a bit better than growing up in Soweto. And I look back and I respect her values and I respect her key attributes as a leader. And I look at it now during the crisis that we're in. In any crisis, what kills everyone is uncertainty. And these are what I've seen and what I think its key attributes now. It's really that be decisive, take decisions, yes, with integrity, but take decisions, have courage to do things that you believe in, because the longer the uncertainty that you leave your people with, the more challenging it becomes. And the last one, I said listening. Yes, you take decisions, you do things you believe in, but good leaders are ones that sit and listen and take feedback. As leaders, we often expected to give feedback, but it's very important that we take feedback and be able to correct our mistakes as we go along the way. So yeah, maybe to reflect again, courage, decisiveness, and just listening. I think those three are key during these crisis times.
Definitely, I can't share your sentiment more. I think the courage that we as leaders today in business, have needed to display for large parts of our organizations has been tremendous, I think. And I think what you just said in terms of your history and growing up and how that has shaped you is hugely beneficial to the strategies that I'm sure you would recommend as an MD at Accenture. Which sort of leads me to the next question, which is around maybe you can share some of those key leadership strategies that will help organizations and leaders to future-proof the plan ahead strategy. So we're all needing to plan ahead at the moment. I know all organizations are doing that, thinking about it. What are some of the leadership strategies that you can share with us that foolproof that or future-proof that?
I've been very fortunate to work for an organization that really believe in always having an eye in the future. And why I'm thinking about that, I was fortunate to interact with a man called Clayton Christensen. May his soul rest in peace. Passed away early this year. An American scholar that came up with a notion of disruptive innovation for Harvard University. We did a course with him. He had a very nice way to articulate disruptive innovation. And I would say to leaders today, I now see it where finding a way to challenge yourself, challenge the status quo. And this is more important now during this time, but I think as leaders, it's something that we always need to do. His explanation of it was how small companies come in and disrupt the bigger players in the space, right? And we've seen this with the likes of the Ubers. We've seen how big companies drop because they never challenged what they did today. But I look at Accenture organization I work for, and I've been with for the last 16 years. One thing that we've done quite well is disrupt ourselves. And I think as leaders, we shouldn't wait for the smaller guys. It's good to see upcoming organizations. We must encourage that. But I think as leaders today, what we need to look at is how do we challenge ourselves in terms of what we do, whether it's the way we do things. I'm in a consulting business where our clients look at us as what's your rate per hour and I want to see you. Last years, we've been challenging this and encouraging work from home. When this crisis hit, I I shouldn't have been amazed, but I was amazed of how we've managed to transition 500,000 people across the globe to seamlessly work from home. And those businesses that have outsourced their business to us, how seamlessly we've done that for them, right? And I think the key strategy for me, it's really challenge yourself, challenge the status quo, disruptive innovation. That's the way to do it. Could continue to look at how you do things different, and that will be my encouragement to leaders today.
Wow. Wow, I mean that's really critical in terms of how you mobilize the workforce, and still keep the productivity going, the engagement levels, the right engagement levels, and as well as the culture and the values. It's quite a it's quite a conundrum that most organizations are facing today. And I guess part of that, the success of that, comes with the change management, the internal change management, and communication that goes to employees, that goes to the workforce. And I guess that leads me to my next question then, which is, what are some of those strategies that has been considered by yourself and Accenture leaders, to encourage that internal change management, to ensure that employees maintain the right levels of engagement during these times?
Look, I mentioned the problem with uncertainty, right? In any change, uncertainty is a problem. We look at the standard change curve, if I can call it that. In any change, everyone gets frustrated. I look at what we're going through now. I have to cancel my holiday. I have to stop this. We started getting frustrated with small things. But quickly we realized that there's more important stuff when important things like, do I have my job security kicked in? Seeing those around us losing jobs, seeing those around us starting to get sick. And we start looking at what really matters, right? The change management for me is really, how do we get people quick enough to accept what's happening? Because sometimes we fixate ourselves on things that we don't have control over. And I think if I look at internal change management, that's key during this time, is how do you get people quickly to accept what is happening so that we can deal with it? And some the strategies or approaches that I've seen working well is, firstly, clear communication. Suddenly you don't have people around you. People get worried, what's happening? Are we losing our jobs? Are we getting salary cuts? Things are happening around us. Clear communication and clear frequent communication becomes key. Inclusive stakeholder management, because when you have a program that you're running, you can go and look at things. How is it going to impact someone? How do I manage that? But things are happening very quickly. That things are happening, and the only way you'll have your finger on the pulse is having inclusive approach to this thing. Get everyone involved, talk to people. What I've seen work well as well is creating dedicated task forces to deal with these things. Because as leaders, we get drawn to other things as well. How do we protect our revenue? How do we support our clients? How do we look at our reserves? Can I carry the headcount that I have for the next 6 months? What do I need to do? But it removes us from those that are impacted by this. So another one is this inclusiveness, if I can say that. Sorry, tongue twister for me. But stakeholders, bring everyone close, communicate, get feedback, and ensure that how you deal with it, it's communicated across the board. I think that's quite important, to include everyone, be agile enough to change. No one has a playbook for these things, right? As they happen, we're learning. being decisive, like I said earlier, and that agility of being able to change course when it needs to be, that's very key to do that.
That is so true. That is so true. I can't share your sentiment even more. I think the fact that the inclusivity part of it is really critical, because I know, I mean, just from our organization as Old Mutual, we've been planning ahead, and we ensure that the plan ahead strategy is fit for purpose to maintain that engagement. And I think that you've raised a good point around inclusivity. How have you ensured or provided that support for your team specifically in this crisis? And I think this can be done in very small ways or very big ways. We're all getting used to the virtual way of working, making our impact through video versus now impact face to face, and we've had to adapt very quickly to it. But at the same time, accelerate our learning as much as possible to endure it. So perhaps you can share with the audience, how have you encapsulated that to ensure that it happens for your team?
Yeah, good question. I was reflecting the other day that, as leaders, when you go into the office every day, when you go to your client site, you realize the number of people that either walk into your office, have a chat with you by the water fountain, seeking advice, one-on-ones. And quickly we move to this new normal, and you realize how that drops very quickly, right? Because people don't see you, they don't reach out. And I think what doesn't change as leaders is for us to find ways to continue to inspire, find ways to continue to motivate our people, and more important, this can only happen if you engage people. And one of the things that I deliberately started thinking of was, how do I do it from my side? Because people are now out of sight. Part of my contribution is, how do I reach out, right? One of the things that I'm quite passionate around is growth, and growth, whether it's personal growth, continue to self-improve. But I get pleasure when I support and see others growing, and in my little way, I can sense my contribution in that. And in doing that, there's certain things that I'm trying and learning. I'm a certified strength coach. I still tell people I'm learning how to coach others, but my success over the years was through coaching, and one way of making sure and going back is doing that. So one of the things that I've done and started doing more frequent is, when I have time and I make the time, is to reach out, right? I've increased the number of people that I have one-on-one with. I prefer one-on-ones. I'm quite, I think growing up, I would have called myself, and maybe I should still call myself, an introvert. But I get excited sitting with one person, having a chat, and seeing how I can support them. So I've increased the number of people that I interact with in terms of trying to coach, uplift. I've taken a sponsorship role around mental wellness. I think I said twice that in these times we get uncertain with what the future holds. But what that uncertainty brings is anxiety. And one of the things that I've started doing during this time, we're running a campaign around mental wellness. I'm the executive sponsor. Reach out to people, and it's quite amazing how you start realizing that as mortal beings, we are not perfect. And this time allowed us to start coming out about it, right? We're talking a lot about our weaknesses, our ailments, and it's leading to us understanding each other better. And I think when we do that, we create very productive teams. And I think this is one of the things that I've started doing that I want to continue with. As much as the virtual connections is creating gaps and putting us far apart, but I'm finding ways that are quite amazing in bringing us even more closer. Because now we're realizing that we need each other more than ever.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that it's excellent that your way of giving back is around the coaching and the mentoring and ensuring that our future leaders are prepared for the new world of work. And I think it's something that's top of mind for everybody, and we all want to do it a bit better. And that's the purpose of you sharing this wisdom with us, because it helps us then prepare as future leaders of business, prepare for the new world of work, and also to take the mentorship and the coaching from your side, and make it more real. So I guess my next question is around how your past experience specifically, and you touched on it earlier, how your past experience has prepared you for the challenges that you're facing right now. You touched on it a bit earlier, but maybe you can share a bit more details with us around that.
Yeah. Look, I think I believe in ensuring leadership development at all levels of life, right? To your point, I've touched on my early experiences with my mother. But throughout the years, what I've seen, whether from my mother, my grandmother, early working years, from the leaders that I've worked with, is the importance of values or beliefs. I think during these times, we spoke about taking actions very quickly. We spoke about doing things, be prepared to have courage to challenge things. It's very difficult to do that if you don't have a set of beliefs or set of values that are things that you look back to, because what you want to do is be comfortable. I'm going to be courageous and do this. There's a business risk if I don't do this, but to what extent am I doing it against my personal beliefs? And I think my past experiences have allowed me to do things that, irrespective of the outcomes, I become comfortable because it's based on what I believe in. It's based on the values. We talk about taking decisions, but there needs to be balance with business risk. There needs to be balance if it's in a personal life. What is that I'm doing, and what is the impact on other people? When I joined Accenture, look, as you're growing up, sometimes these things are instilled in you, but you don't realize what it means. Started working, I even looked at my company values, and there's few that I picked up on that I grounded myself in, right? Integrity, respect for an individual. And as I go through life, I use those, and it becomes even subconscious. You do things, it grounds you, right? You have that grounding, that every action that I take or what I do, it's based on these beliefs and these values. And I think it's something that we need to continuously visit and revisit and make sure that we know what we stand for, because that's the experience that in difficult times like this, you'll go back to and say, I'm comfortable, I'm doing the right thing, even though sometimes it might not seem to be at that time in moment.
Spot on. That's absolutely spot on. I think that it's priceless. Those values and the respect that we have for others, and those intrinsic beliefs are priceless, but and also can't be, it can't be broken. So it's definitely set you in good stead for to deal with this crisis. So perhaps you can share with us what has been your hardest moment personally during this crisis, and what has been your proudest moment? I myself have been through a lot of hard moments. Unlike you, I'm a bit of an extrovert, So the lockdown has proven very challenging, but in the bigger scheme of things, this is just 2020. And we have the rest of our lives ahead of us. But maybe you can share with us what has been your most difficult moment during this crisis and what's been your proudest?
The hardest moment has been being helpless.
Mm.
I guess as leaders, I've just indicated the importance of having a courage to take decisions with a good balance on what the impact is on people's life, on business. We run businesses, and there's that element as well. What has been very difficult is being thrown with questions, or even if it's advice or help that I couldn't resolve, right? And I'll give you an example. We've had clients that have gone through difficult times. Some are in the public in terms of businesses that are closing, and unfortunately, things like this means job losses, right? I've had to have discussions with people that would open up in terms of their personal circumstances, right? I'm losing a job. I have medical problems. I have kids that needs to go to school. I'm the breadwinner, and having to deal with things that you don't have answers to during these times has been, I think, the hardest for me.
Mm.
While I would always try my best to see where I can help, try my best to keep hope, to motivate people. The things that I've learned during this time, and I think I've indicated it, is embracing our weaknesses, embracing what we're currently going through, understanding where we have control and where we don't have control, because it helps us look forward and see what we can do. But I must say that the biggest being helpless has been the hardest moment for me during these times. And the things that I've started doing have been informed by that. I've recently started taking a new pet project of I run the health and public service business for Accenture, and looking at the small businesses that are taking a knock during these times. My new pet project is, how do I increase access to market, especially in government, for SMMEs, right? We have an ESD program that we run. We upskill, we train these small companies, but the most difficult thing that hits them is when revenue streams shut down, when they don't have the power that big companies have with the reserves and stuff. And one of the things that I'm trying to do now is, how do I help them increase their market? Talking to Accenture internally, engaging with other stakeholders outside to see where we can help. I find it difficult when I can't help, especially when someone asks for help.
That's excellent. I think that that we've all had to humble ourselves during this time and accept the vulnerability. I think that's been, I think, a key lesson for us all. And obviously adjusting our strategies and adjusting what we're going to be doing differently in business. So how have you grown as a leader? If you can summarize that for us. You've said a lot around, the lessons you've learned and how you've had to challenge the status quo and think differently, adjust your strategies. And of course, that must have led to different skills as a leader that you've had to learn. So how have you grown as a leader to deal with this crisis?
Yeah, look, and maybe to combine it with the second part of your previous question, I've focused on my hardest moment. But when I look at my growth and maybe my proud moment as well during this, I've learned to prioritize, and And maybe I'll use a simple example. Most people that I talk to have indicated how suddenly they put more hours, how suddenly they work so hard working from home, how they are always on their machines, laptops, sitting behind the desk.
Yes, indeed.
This time more than when they're in the office. Through that, and with everything that has been happening, as an individual and a leader, I've learned the power to prioritize. What you realize is, if you don't do that, we always get sucked into work. I think a lot of successful people, in depending on how you measure success, either successful in their work life and cannot say the same in family lives or in other streams, because we tend to prioritize our work life, and now we're at home. Suddenly our work has just overwhelmed us, and our home have become our work locations, and work takes more time, right? And I have a 3-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter. And in my first week of fully working from home, look, I had the luxury of once a week, or when time allows, to work from home, but now doing it full time. In the first few weeks, the challenge of looking at my son and saying no to going play outside, because for him, daddy's home, we should go play like a Saturday, but I can't. There's a call, I need to do this. And quickly, I just realized that if I allow this to continue, it's going to be a challenge in terms of my family, personal life. And I started looking at ways to prioritize my time. I've become a bit, I'll call it selfish, if it's okay. I look at my diary for the week and I block time to spend with family. Because now you put so much time in the work. I'm quite amazed with the number of movies I've watched over the weekend. I think we've watched more movies now than we've ever watched in a relationship that spends almost 23 years. So, right? I've just realized how talented my daughter is, spending time outside, looking at her, taking gymnastic routines that I never get to go to while I was in the office. And I think what has become important for me and my growth, and I'm looking at my growth as an individual, but it's something that works well as a leader as well in a firm, to say, prioritize your time. I've learned so much to say, what am I going to take on? What am I going to focus on? We spoke about these challenging times that we're in. Some of the stuff we realize is not as important. And I think the biggest growth for me is going back and say, what is important to me? And what is important to Accenture as my firm, in my view, that will benefit from me focusing on. And I think it's something that in the new normal, I'll look back and say, I can prioritize better.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. I think the fact that we have such time limitations now in terms of the virtual world, and managing our time within that, calls for, prioritization with family and with your work. And you touched on it around the new normal. Everybody's talking about the new normal. What will this look like? The fact that we're going through these unprecedented times now. What, in your mind, will the new normal look like for leaders of business?
I might have touched on what I see as the importance of being a leader. I think I've mentioned finding ways to inspire others, motivate others, and I said this you can only achieve by finding ways to engage those that you lead, to engage those that you impact. And I think the new normal, and I'm happy we call it a new normal. We all agree that life will never be the same going forward.
Yes, indeed.
What becomes important for leaders is to find new ways to engage our people. And I might not have an answer on the right way to do that. It's quite interesting. When we started going through this journey, I almost, without pushing it, but I almost insisted on people to be on their video when we have meetings, just so that those that are sitting in their flats, locked up alone, just see someone, and quickly you start reading articles around how bad it is to do that, because people get now forced to be on video. They have to get out of their comfort. And sometimes you don't realize it's an hour for you, but it's 8 hours for them, because after you, it's another meeting, it's a client meeting. And I don't know the right and the wrong answer for now, but it's important that we engage even more and better than we used to. And I think in the new normal as leaders, we need to find the right way and the good balance of engaging with those that we impact along the way in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, and I guess it's for us to define the new normal, to set the parameters of that, and to ensure that, you know, the new normal, as we all talk about, works best for our businesses and for our families, which I think is super important. And it brings me to sort of one of our last remaining questions, which is, who or what inspires you? We all look for inspiration today to get us through these difficult times, and we have to inspire our teams. So who or what inspired you?
I think I've already said it. My mother. My kids, and more from my kids, is how inquisitive they are, how they open to learning. I think sometimes when we go over the years, we tend to know more than what we know. We think we know and we don't. And I think those that are open to finding new ways to improve and grow and solve new problems, and it's quite amazing that I see it in kids. How they just are sponges and they just want to grab more. They ask questions, and I think that inspires me. I have a wife that's very grounded in terms of her beliefs, and I spoke about over the years being able to have things that you fall back on in terms of your values, your belief. She has inspired me over the years to relook at my values and so forth. But I think in the business world, we continue to have challenges. Look at the South African context. Over the years, we have leaders that have courage to challenge status quo, whether from the political side, whether from the business side, to take certain decisions that often might be seen as a trade-off with profits and so forth. I think there's a number, I don't want to name anyone for now, but in different instances, there's leaders that have shown courage to do that would not necessarily benefit them today or benefit them directly, but will have an impact for the broader communities that they impact. And I think as leaders, the greatest reward should be how history judges you in terms of the actions that you've taken. It is the actions that we take that will inspire others, not necessarily what we say and versus what we do. And yeah, I would say my family, my leaders that have showed courage. I get a lot of inspiration from a number of people. I do have external mentors that I've reached out to because I've seen their courage and things that they do. And I think individuals look out for those that continues to help you think about your personal growth and the impact that you can make on everyone else.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so there's one last question that I'd like to ask you today, and that is, we've got about 257 people on the line, a mixed bag of young millennial individuals. What words of advice do you have for future leaders that are listening in today and watching this at a later stage?
Yeah, but by just mentioning the numbers, you've made the question very difficult. I told you I'm a one-on-one person. Now I need to give advice to 200 more people. What's quite, or maybe let me put it this way. I've had an opportunity to interact, and especially young future leaders. I know I'm past 40 mark, but I still consider myself a young leader as well. But I've been very fortunate to interact with the number of people that over the years I've seen them grow, and some are very talented, or made most of them talented. Most of them, I think sometimes when I guide and coach, I think I should be getting coaching from. But one thing that I think often becomes a problem for especially young leaders is finding the right way to measure your success.
Mm-hmm.
Seen a lot of talented people, good leaders that struggle because of how they measure their success. So if there's one advice that I would give is find the right way to measure your success. And I'll give a couple of examples. We tend to measure our success on pleasures of life. We tend to measure our success on material stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Does it mean that if I cannot buy that car, I'm not as successful because I'm comparing myself with someone else, right? I now look after sales and growth for resources, health and public service. In sales, it's a numbers game, right? There's a target that I get, and I have my personal target that I put on myself as well. If I hit the target, but there's someone else who have doubled or tripled the target, does it make me a failure? No, it doesn't, right? We just need to make sure that we have the right ways to measure our own successes. And what you realize is if you do that, your happiness will be in your control versus measuring your success by material things, life pleasures, and things that are outside of your control.
So true. Such valuable words. I think the fact that we need to measure our success against what we want, what we aspire to, versus, society or other people's opinions, it's critical for us as future leaders. And thank you very much for that. Kgomotso, that concludes our leadership conversation. I will hand over now to Laura, who will then conduct the Q&A with you. Thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you. And to guys on the line, please stay on the call, and I will hear from you all again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the conversation with you. I hope that I've inspired someone on that call. Even if it's one person, for me, that's very important.
Thanks, Kgomotso. Next time we will try to, we'll bring out the extrovert in you. We'll ask you to do some dancing, maybe. I'm kidding. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lisa. Kgomotso, thank you. That was incredible. I don't know if you probably haven't. I don't know if you've been watching the chat go through. There's so many questions and so many comments. And in response to, are you inspirational? I would say 50 people on this chat have responded immediately saying yes, absolutely, and thank you. With regard to the questions, there is so many. So thank you to everybody in the audience. I've been taking a few notes. I have a team in the background who are sending me questions. So apologies if we can't get through, we can't. Apologies if we can't get through all of them. But a few that I've picked out initially, Kgomotso, was... Oh, they love your books. They can see your books in the background. They love your books. They'd like to ask you for a book recommendation.
I'm just trying to think. I'll share what I'm reading now, and I think from a leadership point of view. And excuse me, maybe I won't say what the title is. I'll try show it.
I'm sure you can talk. We all friends here.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading at the moment. I started reading it a day ago, or 2 days ago, and I indicated that I recently, about a year and a half, so I qualified as a strength coaching or strength coach. One of the things reading this book that not necessarily changed my mind, but looked at coaching slightly different. We tend to focus on the positive and pushing confidence and getting people to shy away from what's not working. And now during this crisis, I think it has become very clear that life can suck at sometimes, but good leaders, we need to find ways to find problems and solve that. And I think what this has done for me is, as a coach, I focus on people's strength, but I think as an individual, it has taught me to open up to my weaknesses, and then to those that are on the call that are open to grow. When you have sessions with people that guide you, be vulnerable, open up and expose your weaknesses, because what it does to one that's trying to help you is the ability for them, yes, to use your strength, but to help you use your strength to better yourself and solve the problems in your life and overcome your weaknesses.
Fabulous, fabulous. I've also just finished Mthetho Nyati's book, which I think is all about leading through strength and responding to your weaknesses.
Sorry, Laura. Interesting enough, you mentioned that our women's club for Accenture ran a book session with him. They've shared a video, and I listened to the whole video over the weekend with my wife. Inspirational leader there. I know I didn't mention people, but he's one of those guys that have courage to do things that many people are not ready to do or to take.
The courage to put himself out there, absolutely. And to take on difficult challenges. He freely says within the book that the organizations he likes are the ones that he wants that are challenging organizations. He wants a hard job.
We need more people to bet on the darkie.
Absolutely. Some other questions, which is this one is particularly related to what you just mentioned. Marlies would like to know, do you stress about the financial impact from this pandemic, and how do you manage that stress?
Yes, I do stress about it. I'm a breadwinner, if I can call it that. I made a decision 2 years ago. My wife had health issues, and we jointly agreed that she'll stay at home to take care of her health. It meant was a bit of a knock in terms of a financial situation. I did mention growing up in a family of 7 cousins and my grandmother. I still take care of most of those people. One of the things that happened with this crisis was, for me, thinking about that impact, right? Some of the things that I've done, we spoke about giving back, for me was for those that are dependent on me, whether it's the guy that comes help me in the yard, the lady that takes care of my kids when we're not here. My son is still in play school. We've had a discussion around, do we stop him from going and save that money, but the thinking of people who needs to earn the salaries through that. So we did continue to keep our commitments to those that depended on us, even when those services stopped. But what that means is the impact gets, or the knock gets more and more with all that's happening. I did indicate the importance of prioritizing. I think one of the things that I'm looking at now is really prioritizing on what's important. I'm not necessarily a minimalist, but I'm realizing that there's a lot of things that I can cut in my life. to deal with those financial or potential financial impact. And I think it's something that we need to do and look around us and say, what is that we can do better with every cent that comes our way.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm also a breadwinner. I have 2 small children. I'm a single mum, so the responsibility lies heavy on your shoulders, and it's very worrying. But I do agree that this pandemic's allowed us to maybe assess what's important. Maybe we've been living a life of excess, focused on commercialism, and maybe there's some spiritual issues and family issues. You mentioned your children and spending time with your children and prioritizing. Maybe this is the good thing that's come out of this, is allowing us to reassess what's important and giving us that forced time, because we'd never have done it if it wasn't forced. So on that note, somebody, sorry, I didn't catch the name. Somebody said, will you miss your old schedule or do you prefer your new one?
Quite interesting is just before the COVID pandemic, I took on a new role. So until sort of end of last year, I used to be in a technology business responsible for sales and delivery for our resources clients. So all the work we did at the mines, utilities, and oil and gas companies. I was asked towards the end of the year to take a role to lead our health and public service business. So what was interesting is as these things were happening when the year started, I was starting to going through new ways in my personal and career life in terms of a new schedule. And as a company as well, globally, we were also busy with an operating model change. So what has been positive for me is all these things were happening when there were other changes that were happening. What has done, though, it has helped me put together a new schedule quicker than I would have wanted to, because I wanted to phase into it slowly. I mentioned what I started doing that I never had or never given time to, like spending more time with family and so forth. So maybe specific answer is I think I'm going to love my new schedule more than the old one. There's things that are coming in that had stopped with all this stuff. I'm an avid golfer. With golf coming back as well, I'm now negotiating with my wife to say something new that needs to come into the new schedule, to find time to do that as well. But I think the new schedule is a way to go. I'm embracing the current environment that we're in, and I'm setting a new schedule that I have to love, and I'm starting to love already.
I agree. I also struggled initially with the demands. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old, with the demands of children having to say no to them when they know you're in the house. But I think now, what are we, 100 days later? I think a schedule is built by itself. I'm sure it takes commitment, it takes a bit of dedication, it takes a bit of decision making. But I think certainly for my situation, I find it beneficial to all. I get to spend more time with my children, even if it's just hearing them laugh outside my office door. That's a positive thing that I can bring to everything around me. Devon Kemp would like to play a round of golf with you, by the way. Just one of the questions. He's one of the rising stars from this year. We will be announcing who the finalists are on Monday, but he's certainly a semi-finalist.
That's great.
Melissa Gangan would like to know, how have you developed trust in yourself to make these decisive decisions? Difficult one.
Difficult one, but maybe drawing back to some of the questions Lisa asked, I went back to having a right set of beliefs and values, right? It's difficult to trust yourself when you're expected to make the decision on the spot. It's difficult for you to make decisions during these times if you don't have grounding that you base it on. And I think trust yourself is really going back to having right set of beliefs. And it will be what you look back into. If I do something now, does it show respect for an individual if you believe in that? If I do something now, does it afford someone growth if you believe in helping people to continue to grow? I'm a big learner in terms of I believe in always trying to learn new things. And it's something that was instilled in me quite early. I spoke about my mom's belief in education, right? Sometimes even bad. She took care of me until I pretty much got my master's degree. I never wanted to start to work, so I also piggybacked on that because I believed in it. But it was okay for her because it's something that she believed in. She never forced me to start working, even though I think now when I look back, I could have started working 3 years earlier. But I didn't do that because someone believed in me getting the right education, and I did that. And I think to trust yourself in decisions you make, to trust yourself in things that you do, spend a lot of time in grounding yourself into beliefs and values that you live for. And sometimes you will be crucified, you'll make decisions based on that. But I think you'll trust yourself because it's what's meaningful for you.
Absolutely, it's the core of who you are, and if you work with the core of who you are and you keep true to your own core, then that's the only trajectory you can be to be an authentic leader.
Yeah.
On a little bit of a change, there's a few people who want to know about the Accenture company culture. Has it improved or declined through this pandemic? How do you keep a company culture alive when everybody's working from home? What 3 words would you use to describe the company culture of Accenture? Because I think there's a lot of people who would like to just know a little bit about how Accenture's dealing with it.
Look, everyone will have their own view on what the company culture is. There's documented as a consulting firm, we even self consult or self service to look at what our culture should be. But the 16 years I've spent with the firm, I believe in the reason I stayed is the culture that I see is one where you know that you work in a team. You know that at any given time you raise your hand, someone will help you. We have 500,000 people globally. So the culture has always been able to ask for help when you need help, and asking for help doesn't mean that you are a failure. And I guess having had to work in a global network over the years, doing things virtually and stuff had become part of our DNA, if I can put it that. So the impact was not that much, but I think with local teams, I did mention this, that sometimes finding ways to reach out to people, finding creative ways to ask for that help becomes important. I think the impact is how we engage differently, how we engage better. But even more than ever, that culture, I see it growing over time, because now you're sitting there alone, you have to raise your hand and ask for help. And I hope everyone from Accenture continues to be there to support those that are asking for help.
Amazing. And thank you for stepping forward to help all these young people now and giving your time on behalf of yourself and of Accenture. I've actually, on that note, just seen the time. We've run slightly over. I could continue speaking to you and hearing from you for a long time, but I'm sure everybody's schedules are busy. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time today, Kgomotso. I'd like to thank you for offering the 60-minute mentorship to one of the young people in the room. We will spend time going through all the questions. We'll try and find somebody who is participative and a good match, and we'll send through. So I appreciate. I have no doubt that you've made a difference to some people's lives today. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and thanks for everyone who've organized this, and for those that have joined. Thank you for taking your time. To Laura's point, I hope there's something that I've said that will make a difference in your life. Laura, if we find the right way, I'm happy to find a way on dealing with some of the other questions that we could not get to. We can have a chat offline. How do we do that?
Amazing, amazing. That's very generous. Thank you very much. I appreciate you prioritizing. Cool. Take care. Everybody else in the room, as I said, we'll be in touch with who's won the first prize mentorship early next week. And watch out for our next leadership conversations coming up in July, secured with Henny Heyman, the CEO of DHL Express Sub-Saharan Africa. He's also generously offered 1 hour of his time to somebody in the room. So you'll find all of our upcoming events at risingstar.co.za. You can go there, you can log on. And I'd like to thank you once more. Thank you, Accenture. Thank you, Kgomotso. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you to everybody in the room. Thank you and goodbye.